So, now that the AI-powered online song creation tool Suno has acquired WavTool, the browser-based AI-powered DAW, will Suno become your next go-to DAW? Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight Studio, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about the enormous impact of AI-based online song generation apps like Suno and Refusion and Musicful and Udio, and the effect they're having on the music industry, and specifically the effect they're having on you, creators, producers, mixers, singer-songwriters. All of those are being dramatically affected by this, and it's all happening at an incredibly alarming rate. You know, companies like Suno and Udio and, and many, many others, there's more coming out each day. But they've recently got themselves into some pretty hot water, and they've got themselves embroiled in quite a few class action lawsuits. And the reason is because their original models, the engine that drives that huge economy now, was actually trained on your input. So hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of songs were used to train that AI model, except no one was paid in that transaction. This is literally your input. Your input as songwriters and creators and producers were used to create that. Then they're gonna wrap the entire thing up in a big bow and sell it back to you a nickel at a time. They're literally selling back your own creative effort to you. So this explains where all the class action lawsuits came from. So obviously, companies like Suno, they understand they're not going to be able to toe-to-toe with that for very long. They're not going to be able to exist or thrive or grow in an environment that is just going to be riddled with class action lawsuits because there's little or no input on your end in the final product. So the very clever people at Suno have come up with a very clever legal loophole. Insurance for them. That's going to be their insurance in allowing them to grow in the future. And that insurance is going to come in the form of what's known as transformative use. All right, so first we need a little bit of backstory because context is important where all of this is concerned. And there's a lot of backstory here. So if we go all the way back to 1991, DigiDesign introduces Pro Tools. And Pro Tools changes the industry. We go completely from tape-based recording, even digital-based recording like ADAT and formats like that, to completely computer-based multi-track recording. And that would change the landscape of musical recording forever. In 1996, Steinberg introduces VST protocol, and that allows us to use plugins. And they emulate things in the hardware world. Fast forward to April 2023 and WavTool comes out. WavTool is one of the first AI browser-based online DAWs, which means you don't have to host it on your own computer. If you have a less than powerful computer, or maybe you're working on an iPad or something, you can simply log into the browser and have access to this amazingly powerful DAW right on your own mobile device. Fast forward to December 2023 and Suno comes out. The first commercially successful AI-based song creation tool. And with something as little as a prompt, you can create incredibly commercially viable songs with a click of a button, literally. Suno realizes with all these lawsuits that are piling up that they're not gonna be able to survive in this environment very long until they find some insurance. And that insurance is gonna come in what's known as transformative use. Transformative use is sort of YouTube talk for something that has been changed from its original state or origin. So if you produce an AI-based song from Suno, for example, that's subject to all kinds of copyright infringement lawsuits and class action suits and things like that. Even though the original versions of Suno on the Pro and Premium plan offered some kind of copyright control, it was unclear what that actually meant as they're not a pro rights organization. But if you can change it, if you can put enough of your own input and creative sort of input into it, you can actually ward off a substantial amount of that copyright infringement risk. Fast forward to June of 2025 and the AI music creation giant Suno's own blog hints at what will later become an industry bombshell announcement that they will buy the AI-powered DAW WavTool outright. What this actually means, like any powerful tool, this is an artificial, sort of hand in helping you create your final product. So that's not new. This isn't a unique scenario. We've been using artificial tools for a long time. Plugins, perfect example. Plugins allow us to use emulated versions of our favorite compressors and EQs and choruses and all kinds of things without actually having to have that hardware. But the difference is those contracts, those agreements, those licenses, when somebody wanted to emulate, for example, an LA2A, they had to go to Universal Audio and they had to emulate that. And that emulation process got more and more detailed as time went by. And as that got more intricate, the companies that were involved in the hardware got more involved, and we all benefited from that transaction. What makes AI-powered tools different is that there is no transaction, and it's not asking anybody's permission. Suno's acquisition of WavTool opens up a whole new Pandora's box of issues. And they're issues that are going to affect you and me and probably everyone you know in the musical industry. On the other hand, it makes the process of song creation a lot more creative. Instead of just relying completely on an AI engine to do all the heavy lifting, you actually have the ability to go in and tweak things. You have the ability to go in and work in a DAW-like environment. And because WavTool works like that, it allows you to produce things that require your input. Hence, transformative use. You've transformed the original completely AI-based output of the previous engine into something that involves your creativity, your input, your musical ideas. It isn't surprising that Suno kind of looked at that AI sort of integration and realized that not only is this our ticket out of, class action lawsuit land, it's also a way of combining all the problematic issues that exist with an AI-only based song creation model with a user input-based song creation model, because now it'll actually involve your input. So after this big Suno and WavTool acquisition, their site now, when you go to it, you can see that its new product that it's going to be offering to all their tiered subscription users is going to be known as Suno Studio. And Suno Studio is going to be all of the pre-existing tools and subscription tiers of Suno with all the benefit and DAW possibilities of WavTool combined. Now, it's not out yet, but it will be shortly, so we don't know all the ins and outs about it, but we can see here from the website that it's basically headed in that direction. After that, it's effectively going to be a completely AI-based DAW, not just helping you with things like chord changes and signal chains and things like that, but all of that plus song creation. This is going to create a completely new paradigm of artificial tools that are based entirely on AI creation with a little bit of your creativity thrown in along the way. How much of your own creativity will be, remain to be seen, and whether or not it actually allows you to treat those things like a real DAW. Can you separate them entirely as stems? Can you act on them like you would in a DAW? Can you change things at a granular level? That we don't know yet, but it is clearly going to be a completely sort of new approach. It's only going to be a matter of time, obviously, especially if this goes well, that we start to see these same kinds of AI-based tools sneak their way into existing DAWs. It's inevitable because it's the only way those existing DAWs like Pro Tools and Cubase and Studio One and, Bitwig and Live and all the other ones are going to be able to compete against these kinds of incredibly powerful tools. All right, so the real question here, the long and short of it, is how does this affect you and me? How does this affect people who make a living via music in some fashion? As it turns out, it affects it quite a bit, and it's going to affect it more and more as time goes by. And the reason why is because of the market itself. It floods the market with an unbelievable amount of those things. It'd be like if you won the lottery, you enter into $100 million, dollar lottery and you win it, and you get to the lottery office and they tell you, oh, by the way, 100 million other people also won the lottery, so you won $1. I mean, that's kind of where we're headed. We're headed to the point now where the music itself is becoming so diluted that its very value is at stake. And I think that's the real danger here, is the devaluation of music as we know it. Because what's going to happen is those companies like Suno and Udio and all the others, they're in it for the long game. they don't want just subscription revenue. They want the copyright revenue as well. And if they can hang on to even just a percentage of that, times hundreds of thousands or even millions of users, then that puts them in a completely different ballgame. And it also makes hanging onto your own copyrights even harder. At the moment, the copyright issue is still unclear, and it remains to be seen whether or not Suno Studio, the new version, will deal with copyrights differently, or whether they'll make direct agreements with legitimate organizations like ASCAP and BMI. As a songwriter and somebody who's been involved in publishing for most of my musical life, this is a really near and dear issue to me because it's so hard to hang on to it under the best of circumstances, let alone under the worst of circumstances. Anyway, if you learned something about this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help keep a young channel like this going. Try to get your creative vision out there to the world because it really, really needs it. Take care. We'll catch you guys in the next video.